Key Out of Time by Andre Norton, Chapter 6. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by R.J. Davis. Key Out of Time by Andre Norton, Chapter 6, Loketh the Useless. The wash of waves covered Ross's advance until he came up against a wall not too far from the spy's perch. Whoever crouched there still leaned forward to watch Carrara, and Ross's eyes, having adjusted to the gloom of the cavern, made out the outline of head and shoulders. The next 2 or 3 minutes were the critical ones for the Terran. He must emerge on the ledge in the open before he could attack. Carrara might also have read his mind and given conscious help, for now she went out to the point of the ledge to whistle the dolphin's summons. Tina Raw's sleek head bobbed above water as he answered the girl with a bubbling squeak. Carrara knelt and the dolphin came to butt against her outheld hand. Ross heard a gasp from the watcher, a faint sound of movement. Carrara began to sing softly, her voice rippling in one of the liquid chants of her own people, the dolphin interjecting a note or two. Ross had heard them at that before, and it made perfect cover for his move. He sprang. His grasp tightened on flesh. Fingers closed about thin wrist. There was a yell of astonishment and fear from the stranger as the Terran jerked him from his perch to the ledge. Ross had his opponent flattened under him before he realized that the other had offered no struggle, but lay still. "What is it?" Carrara's torch beam caught them both. Ross looked down into a thin brown face, not too different from his own. The wide-set eyes were closed and the mouth gaped open. Though he believed the Vacaquian unconscious, Ross still held hold on those wrists as he moved from the sprawled body. With the girl's aid, he used a length of kelp to secure the captive. The stranger wore a garment of glistening skin-tight material which covered body, legs, and feet, but left his lanky arms bare. A belt about his waist had loops for a number of objects, among them a hook-pointed knife which Ross prudently removed. "Why, he's only a boy," Carrara said. "Where did he come from, Ross?" The Terran pointed to the wall crevice. "He was up there watching you." Her eyes were wide and round. "Why?" Ross dragged the prisoner back against the wall of the cave. After witnessing the fate of those who had swum ashore from the wreck, he did not like to think what motive might have brought the Vacaquian here. Again, Carrara's thoughts must have matched his, for she added, "But he did not even draw his knife. What are you going to do with him, Ross?" The problem already occupied the Terran. The wisest move undoubtedly was to kill the native out of hand, but such ruthlessness was more than he could stomach, and if he could learn anything from the stranger, gain some knowledge of this new world and its ways, he would be twice winner. Why, this encounter might even lead to Ash. "Ross, his leg, see?" The girl pointed. The tight fit of the alien's clothing made the defect clear. The right leg of the stranger was shrunken and twisted. He was a cripple. "What of it?" Ross demanded sharply. This was no time for an appeal to the sympathies. But Carrara did not urge any modification of the bonds, as he half feared she would. Instead, she sat back cross-legged, an odd, withdrawn expression making her seem remote, though he could have put out his hand to touch her. "His lameness. It could be a bridge," she observed to Ross's mystification. "A bridge? What do you mean?" The girl shook her head. "This is only a feeling, not a true thought, but also it is important. Look, I think he is waking." The lids above those large eyes were fluttering. Then, with a shake of the head, the Vacaquian blinked up at them. Blank bewilderment was all Ross could read in the stranger's expression, until the alien saw Karwa. Then a flood of clicking speech poured from his lips. He seemed utterly astounded when they made no answer, and the fluency of his first outburst took on a pleading note, while the expectancy of his first greeting faded away. Karwa spoke to Ross. He is becoming afraid, very much afraid. At first I think he was pleased, happy. But why? The girl shook her head. I do not know. I can only feel. Wait. Her hand rose in emperor's command. She did not rise to her feet, but crawled on hands and knees to the edge of the ledge. Both dolphins were there, raising their heads well out of the water, their actions expressing unusual excitement. Ross? Karwa's voice rang loudly. Ross? They can understand him. Tina Ra and Ta can understand him. You mean they understand this language? Ross found that fantastic, awesome as the abilities of the dolphins were. No, his mind. It's his mind, Ross. Somehow he thinks in patterns they can pick up and read. They do that, you know, with a few of us, but not in the same way. This is more direct, clearer. They're so excited. Ross glanced at the prisoner. The alien had wiggled about, striving to raise his head against the wall as a support. His captor pulled the Avakian into a sitting position, but the native accepted that aid almost as if he were not aware of Ross's hands on his body. He stared with a kind of horrified disbelief at the bobbing dolphin heads. He is afraid, Karwa reported. He has never known such communication before. Can they ask him questions? Demanded Ross. If this odd metal tie between Terran dolphin and Avakian did exist, then there was a chance to learn about this world. They can try. Now he only knows fear, and they must break through that. What followed was the most unusual four-sided conversation Ross could have ever imagined. He put a question to Karwa, who relayed it to the dolphins. In turn, they asked it mentally of the Vacakian and conveyed his answer back via the same route. It took some time to allay the fears of the stranger, but at last the Vacakian entered wholeheartedly into the exchange. He is the son of the Lord ruling the castle above. Karwa produced the first rational and complete answer, but for some reason he is not accepted by his own kind. Perhaps, she added on her own, it is because he is crippled. The sea is his home, as he expresses it, and he believes me to be some mythical being out of it. He saw me swimming, masked, and with the dolphins, and he is sure I change shape at will. She hesitated. Ross, I get something odd here. He does know, or thinks he knows, creatures who can appear and disappear at will, and he is afraid of their powers. Gods and goddesses, perfectly natural. Karwa shook her head. No, this is more concrete than a religious belief. Ross had a sudden inspiration. Hurriedly, he described the cloaked figure who had driven the castle people from the piles of salvage. Ask him about that one. She relayed the question. Ross saw the prisoner's head jerk around. The Avakian looked from Karwa to her companion, a shade of speculation in his expression. He wants to know why you ask about the Pholana. Surely you must well know what manner of beings they are. Listen. Ross was sure now that he had made a real discovery, though its importance he could not guess. Tell him we come from where there are no Pholana, that we have powers and must know of their powers. If he could only carry on this interrogation straight and not have to depend upon a double translation. And could he even be sure his questions reached the alien undistorted? Wearily, Ross sat back on his heels. Then he glanced at Karwa with a twinge of concern. If he was tired by their roundabout communication, she must be doubly so. There was a droop to her shoulders, and her last reply had come in a voice hoarse with fatigue. Abruptly, he started up. That's enough for now. Which was true. He had to have time for evaluation.